Capcom, the wonderful company behind some of my favorite video game franchises of all time. One of those being the smokin', sexy, stylish Devil May Cry franchise. And speaking of which, where is Devil May Cry's remake? So recently I have been revisiting the original Devil May Cry games, mainly just to experience what made me fall in love with this series all over again. Roaming around the dark, gothic architecture of Malay Island, battling against all demonic horrors that await me in Devil May Cry 1. Enjoying the absolute peak of gaming in the incredible, timeless Devil May Cry 2. Okay. I can't even joke about that with a serious face. To replaying the most stylish, fun, chaotic joyride that is Devil May Cry 3, which for those of you who don't know is my favorite video game of all time. And finally reaching the 4th installment where we are introduced with everybody's favorite deadweight, Nero, and Goofy Uncle Dante. After replaying these games throughout all my years of gaming, the only thing that is on my mind right now is how incredible these original titles would look with Capcom's remake treatment, and how I think they should go about it. Wes from the future here. Just wanted to say this video took a lot out of you, boy, and would greatly appreciate if you subscribed, commented, hit that bell, all that good stuff. Anyway, back to the video. Now, one of the many things I love about Capcom is their character design, and I was absolutely blown away when I first witnessed the RE engine in full effect in Resident Evil 7. Fast forward a bit to June of 2018, where I was losing my mind over the reveal for Resident Evil 2's remake, and witnessing the reveal for Devil May Cry 5, of course. But going back to Resident Evil 2, I mean, what all is there to say? The Resident Evil series has always been iconic throughout all forms of media, and to see Capcom bring such a classic back with fully reimagined graphics and no more fixed camera angles, and they didn't stop there. Since then, we have had remakes for the 3rd installment, and just recently we received one for the wonderful Resident Evil 4. Which is my second favorite game of all time. Outside of the beautiful graphics generated by the RE engine, what I truly love most is how similar these remakes are to the originals, but also how they brought new content to the remakes. One of my best examples lies in Resident Evil 4. In the original, we have the famous ladies' man Luis Serra, and during that game he had a little bit of mystery to him, but really not that much character development. On top of that, we had dude bro Chad Leon, who just decided to trust him, and here and there they would cross paths and work with one another, and then he decides to help Leon and Ashley, and then he just dies to Sadler.
Louis!
Now compare that to the remake, where we have new scenes and different highlights of Luis's character, learning more about his connections with Umbrella, understanding his motives, and how he wants to redeem himself by helping Leon and Ashley, until finally he is killed by Krauser this time around. And his death definitely hit a lot harder in the remake in comparison to his death in the original. So overall, Capcom has done wonderful work completely reimagining some of our favorite characters and bringing new life to an already excellent series, and so I can't help but wonder, why haven't we got this for Devil May Cry yet? Now, I'm sure we all know the age-old tale of how originally the first Devil May Cry was actually supposed to be Resident Evil 4, but the creator Hideki Kamiya had a different vision, where instead of focusing on the survival horror aspect, instead he wanted to focus on over-the-top, cool, flashy, stylish combat. And then Devil May Cry 1 was born. After revisiting Devil May Cry 1, I think it is pretty safe to say that the game is definitely showing its age. Even though it has the elements of what makes Devil May Cry so great, going from Dante's style meter to his different devil arms, it just doesn't hold up to what we were given in Devil May Cry 3 all the way up to Devil May Cry 5. But regardless of all of that, I can't help but still have a soft spot for Devil May Cry 1. No matter how many times I replay it, I am always loving every second I spend looking at the medieval, gothic level design all throughout Malay Island, and I can only imagine how it would look if Capcom just went ahead and gave it a remake. Now, there are already a lot of fans of Devil May Cry 1, but imagine how many new fans would be brought to the franchise after the game has been remade. I mean, just look at the success of Devil May Cry 5. There were plenty of new players brought to the series, and they absolutely loved everything that the game had to offer. But if you are a new player who wants to take a look at the older titles, I would imagine it would be pretty difficult to fully enjoy the first installment after playing Devil May Cry 5. And for the new players that want to learn more of the game's story and perhaps even play them in order, well, it definitely would be confusing given the true chronological order of the series, and my point still stands that they may not be able to bring themselves to play the older titles due to them being so outdated in their eyes. So how should Capcom remake the series? Well, it's simple. Let's start from the beginning.
It's the young cancer!
In this game, we are focusing on the story of Dante in his early years of demon hunting, and throughout this story, we are introduced to the characters Arkham, Lady, and Virgil. In this game, each character has their own objective. Virgil wants to unleash the demon world upon the human world while also obtaining the power of him and Dante's father, Sparta. Meanwhile, Arkham wants to take that power for himself, and Lady is going after Arkham, her father, to get revenge after all the pain that he has brought onto her in pursuit of becoming a demon. Now, in the original, we are mainly playing through Dante's story. There's also the option to play as Virgil, but it really is just Virgil running around through Dante's story and everything he already did, but we're Virgil now, so it's cool. But throughout Dante's campaign, we are given cutscenes for all the other characters explaining their purpose in the plot and their overall motives. So imagine in a remake for this game, we play as Dante, Virgil, and Lady. It would be awesome to start the game from Virgil's perspective, or maybe even toss in a DLC about his time in Fortuna for some good old foreshadowing of the story ahead. But focusing on the plot of Devil May Cry 3, I think it would be cool to be in Virgil's shoes leading up to his alliance with Arkham, and the events that took place before the Timon Negru was revived, his adventures throughout the tower, and even his fight against Beowulf, which they could just turn into a full-on boss fight. I also think it would be nice to play as Lady and experience her perspective up until she finds the demonic tower. And overall, throughout the story, she had some really cool cutscenes that I outright would just love to play myself. One other thing to mention is how well they could give a unique style of gameplay for all three characters. For Dante, give him the Nintendo Switch treatment and give him all of his styles and weapons. Reintroduce the focus mechanic with Virgil and let us do all of the cool stuff we are used to seeing Virgil pull off. And for Lady, I mean, we already got some gameplay with her in Devil May Cry 4, but I'm sure they could give her some new animations and flashy gunslinging moves. Overall, Devil May Cry 5 did a great job at sharing the story between Dante, Nero, and V, and I strongly believe they could do just as good in Devil May Cry 3 with Dante, Virgil, and Lady. Another thing they could do is bring back the online element where you see other players going through the story with a different character. Maybe this could lead to a better version of, say, Mission 19, where Dante and Virgil team up against Arkham, and to finish it all off, why not let us play as Virgil against Mundus for a secret ending boss or something of that nature to lead up to the events of the next game? And now we are at Devil May Cry 1, or the second remake that would just be called Devil May Cry 2? I don't know, just bear with me for a second. In this game, we are introduced to Trish, the demon created by Mundus to look exactly like Dante's mother, Eva. We then follow Dante and Trish to Mallet Island, and I will say it a million times in this video. With a remake of this game, everything about Mallet Island would be absolutely stunning. From its level design, to the enemies, boss fights, the music, you name it. It could have beautiful visuals similar to what we have seen in Elden Ring or any of the other Souls titles. And since we are now following the events that take place after the last game, we can make things a lot deeper and more personal with Nello Angelo, aka Virgil. In each fight, we see Nello Angelo fighting to break free from being a puppet to Mundus, until finally it is revealed to Dante that it has been Virgil the entire time. It could allow for a much more emotional battle this time around, rather than just overcoming Nello Angelo for the last time and getting a power-up. In the original, we can hear echoes of Dante's past with Virgil and his mother Eva, but maybe in the remake we can actually see some flashbacks to those moments? Dante then forges the amulets together and he embodies the form of his father, Sparta, which I'm sure the remade version of this game would make that Devil Trigger look phenomenal. Then we continue the regularly scheduled program of fighting Mundus with this new power, and then we go back to Trish, and you already know what scene has to remain the same in this remake.
I should have been the one to fill your dark soul with light.
We then get the last struggle against Mundus, and the end to the now second remake of Devil May Cry. And now we are at the part we have all been waiting for: how to remake that monstrosity that is Devil May Cry 2. And funnily enough, in this hypothetical remake scenario, this is the third game in the franchise now. I just think it's funny given how garbage Devil May Cry 2 was and how Devil May Cry 3 is just one of the games of all time. Now this game has endless flaws, and I spent plenty of time coming up with ideas on what they could do to fix this game, but it's just not that easy. First of all, let's start with Lucia. Now I'm gonna be honest, I actually preferred to play Lucia in Devil May Cry 2 instead of Dante. I felt her projectiles, implementation of kicks, and her overall moveset and combos were a lot more fun to play in comparison to Dante, but that's just my opinion. Going back to Dante, we would need more than the semi-wet built-in style system that was already present in Devil May Cry 2. Technically, Trickster was a permanent style you could just spam by pressing circle everywhere you go, and while in combat, when locked onto one enemy, while blasting away with Devil May Cry 2 Dante's guns, if you move in direction to another enemy, then Dante will enter Twosome Time, which is a move found in Gunslinger. Overall, it would be safe to just follow the same blueprint and formula, giving Dante multiple styles and weapons to choose from, and make the combat more engaging and fun instead of just shooting demons with guns for the entire game. Now I know that this game was really rushed, and Hideki Itsuno did what he could with only 4 months to work on the game before its release, but with a remake and proper time working on story and different characters, I believe they could create literally anything better than the original. Now we have made it to Devil May Cry 4, and I'll start off by saying that I do love this game. Now throughout the years I have heard different opinions on this game. Some say how this game also felt rushed and how everything past mission 11 to mission 19 was just not up to par with the rest of the game. And honestly, to an extent, I agree. Now my main thing is not that I feel the game was rushed, but rather Dante doesn't really have a place in this game. Don't get me wrong, his gameplay was incredibly fun, but you can tell that the enemies were designed with Nero's gameplay in mind. Now Dante still worked because of how versatile his kit was, but after all, he just took Nero's path backwards, fighting the same bosses, and then we got to that good old fight with the Savior in Mission 18. So how should they go about a remake to this game? Well, let's start with this. First things first, have Nero actually kill the boss fights he ran into before he was captured. Now I know that those bosses all retreated to Hellgates, which were powered by the devil arms Dante received after finishing them off, but instead of them all just having a Hellgate to run away to, being powered by specific devil arms, why not just turn those devil arms into boss fights in a new path? Let's have Dante explore a different part of Fortuna where he comes across Gilgamesh and defeats it and takes its soul like he did against the other bosses in Devil May Cry 3. Turn them all into different demons unleashed from the Hellgates and have Dante defeat them on his journey to get Yamato back from Agnus. Speaking of Yamato, it would be awesome if it wasn't just limited to a few moves with Dante. After he gets it back during his fight with the Savior, there really is no need for the weapon in that boss fight at all. So have Dante fully embrace a temporary new style, the style being Darkslayer and Virgil's likeness, and have him pull off a whole lot more Virgil-esque movements and different attacks and whatnot that would just, I don't know, be a whole lot better than what we got in the original game. And have him battle the Savior that way before he sends it back to Nero. We can then have the game continue as the original, but let's just please get rid of those tedious and awful dice rolling levels. I hate them with a burning passion and rather them never come back in a future remake. The game can then carry on as normal till Nero puts down the Savior once and for all, saves Kyrie, and then him and Dante go his separate ways. And so that wraps up my rant on everything Capcom could do to remake the original Devil May Cry games, and having it all lead up perfectly to Devil May Cry 5. But one question remains, where do we go from here? Well, after the events of Devil May Cry 5, we are left with Nero being the only hero remaining to protect the human world after Dante and Virgil stayed in Hell. So Capcom could definitely give us a 6th game following Nero's story, and there's a chance that in Dante and Virgil's adventures in Hell, they could come across Mundus again. After all, in Devil May Cry 1, Mundus did say, so maybe we could have a game focused on Dante, Virgil, and Nero all fighting together to put down Mundus once and for all. Another idea I've had for years now would be a complete prequel to the entire series. This time, playing as Sparta, all throughout his legend leading up to his short life he spent with Dante, Virgil, and Eva before his disappearance. One other thing to mention is that Capcom just put out a survey/election for favorite character and favorite video game. And the fans voted Dante as their favorite character and Devil May Cry 5 as favorite game. Now, I could be wrong, but I believe the last time a survey like this happened, Resident Evil 2 got a lot of votes, and then soon after that, Resident Evil 2 got a remake, so maybe it isn't far-fetched anymore. All in all, Devil May Cry deserves a remake just as much as Resident Evil, and I would love to see it happen. Ever since I was just a kid, I have been playing both franchises to the death, all the way up until now, And I mean, the Resident Evil 4 remake was the first project that I ever worked here on YouTube. And here I am 700 plus subs later being able to sit here and just talk about my passion for all things Devil May Cry. And if I saw that my favorite video game of all time, that being Devil May Cry 3, or honestly any of the original titles was getting a remake, I would absolutely lose it. But that's gonna do it for today's video. Hope you all enjoyed. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Please and thank you. This has been Wesptb, and I'll see y'all in the next one.